Over the years, my editing software of choice was originally called Sony Vegas and now has changed name to Vegas Pro. I've picked up a lot of editing experience in this program over the years, and I'd love to share my knowledge with you. Whether you're someone who's never edited a video before or you're a seasoned editor, I guarantee that you'll learn something in this masterclass. I'll show you how to edit a video from start to finish, but also how to add titles, create time lapses, and even slow motion video, removing a green screen background, cloning yourself, and much more. You can follow along by downloading the Vegas free trial at the Vegas website absolutely free. Whether you're a beginner or a novice editor, this is for you. If you want to start from the very beginning, don't know anything about this software, and learn how to edit multiple types of videos, this will work for you. The same is true for those who know Vegas a little bit but want to bounce around and find out more about Vegas. And if that is you, then be sure to just go ahead and go through the lesson list and see what you can learn and what you need. No need to watch the whole thing if you already know the basics. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So as you can see on the screen, this is the way Vegas looks when it pops up. Vegas is an editing software just like Adobe Premiere or other editing software you may be familiar with. And once you open it, you're typically going to see this screen. So a new project window, which will ask you to set a template for your timeline. This, as you see when you look up and down, you've got HD, 720p, 1080p, 2K, 4K, and so forth. If you're just making videos for the internet, you don't have to go with anything crazy down here. That's for 360 cameras, etc. But I'm just going to go ahead and use 1080p, and I want to do 30 frames per second. Now, the frames per second is going to be useful for what type of video you're trying to make. If you want to make something that looks cinematic or a short film, a lot of people use 24 frames per second because it has that film feel. 30 frames per second is good for the standard video, and 60 is really good for really smooth motion, especially if you shot it that way in your camera. I'm going to go ahead and stick to 1080p, 30 frames per second. The rest of this doesn't really matter. However, you can choose where you want the files to go in this project. And then just go ahead and hit OK. Now that we've hit OK, you can see the windows. So this is what Vegas is laid out to begin with. You've got project media. This is where you can organize the project media if you'd like. You've got Explorer. This is where you can find media on your computer's hard drive. Transitions, this is where you can add transitions for your shots. Video effects, this is where we're going to find all of the video effects that we'll be using today as well. Media generators, we'll talk more about this, but this is where you can add text and so forth. Project notes, if you want to keep track of some notes for you. Over here on the right side, you've got video preview. This is where you're going to be able to preview the footage you have in your timeline. And the trimmer is where you can cut and things if you don't want to do it directly on the timeline. On the bottom, you've got the timeline. This is the time code on the left where you are in the stream of your timeline. So if we click around here, you'll see the time adjusts. And you've got little timestamps here as well. Additionally, you've got your play, pause, stop, play from beginning, loop, playback, record audio if you want to do a voiceover, and so forth. What is nice too, at the very top right here, above the video preview, you'll see preview quality. So if your computer isn't that powerful, but you still want to just do some rough editing here and there, you can go down to draft or preview to select how you want it to display the video. So as you can see here, if I do draft and I have auto, this is the project file, but then this is the dimensions that it's displaying in. So basically, it's sizing down the video so that your computer can handle it. That's basically how to create a project, but let's go ahead and talk about adding media. So there's a couple different ways you can add media to your project. One would be going to Explorer and finding it on your computer, so you can click on the folders and find the files you want. Another way would be going to File at the top left, and then going to Import, and from there going Media. And then you can basically just search your hard drive for the files as well. And then the two other ways, which I prefer, seems to be a little easier for me, is just open up the folder that you have all your media in. And once you have that selected, you can just drag and drop. So you can drag over a video file from the folder all the way to the project media pane or directly to the timeline. I typically go directly to the timeline just because that adds it to the project media as well. and I can just have all of my clips down here when I begin to edit. Once you do drag something over, you're going to get this pop-up box. Do you want to set your project video settings to match this media? If all of your video is coming out of one camera and that's all you're going to be adding, usually you can go ahead and just do this. And that's a great way for it to adjust the project settings and the dimensions to fit whatever camera style you were shooting. However, if you're adding a bunch of different clips from a bunch of different cameras, say your phone, a DSLR, a drone, whatever it be, and they're all different sizes and stuff like that, then you would want to hit no, because you can select the main project dimensions when you add that project at the beginning. So we're just going to hit no because I have a bunch of different files that are going to be popping in from different sources. And once I did that, you see here on the timeline, you've got the video feed as well as the audio feed. So these two tracks are what we've got to start out with. What you're going to see here is some sliders. So you've got levels. This one's going to be for the opacity of the entire video track, so making darker or lighter. And then this one's going to be the volume, lower or higher, as well as the center for if you want it on the left or the right of your audio for surround sound. Additionally, you've also got mute and solo. So if you mute that track, it's going to cut that one off entirely. And if you solo it, it's going to mute everything else. Additionally, over here, you've got a button that'll allow you to choose some other things, but we're going to skip those for now. So that's basically how to add media to your project, as well as create a new project. So next lesson, we're going to talk about how to move your media around, cut it, and also delete it. But let's go ahead and if you right click and you hit remove from project, I'm just going to go ahead and drag in every single file that I'm going to be using. Next up, let's move on to moving media around, cutting and deleting. All right, so now let's talk about how to move your media around, cut it, and delete it. So let's go ahead and add just a couple things to a timeline. So if you click on one of your media, if you click on Control or Shift, you can also select multiple, and then go ahead and drag it down here to your timeline. It'll show you where it's going to end as soon as you drop it. Perfect. Okay, so what we can do, if you want, we can hit spacebar or the play button to play it. And I'm just going to up the quality just a little bit. All right, so anytime you hit the space bar, that's just going to play, and then once you hit space, it's going to go back to where your playhead is. So if you move this wherever you start it, or if you just click in the middle of the timeline and you hit space bar and space bar again, it's going to go back to that spot. If you hit enter, it's going to play, and then once you hit enter again, it'll stop right there. So for this scene, we just want to have a quick little drone shot. So I'm going to start with just in the middle. Hit S on your keyboard. That's going to split the clip. You can hit Control Z to go back. You can also hit your right click on your mouse, and from there you can hit split. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on this first one and hit delete on my keyboard, or you can hit this X right here and that'll get rid of that clip, and drag this to the beginning of my timeline. So let's go to the beginning. I'm going to hit enter to play just a little bit. That's about good. Hit enter again. S to split. Delete to delete. Next up, I just want a little piece of this little clip here. So I'm going to start it right about there. So as you can see, I'm just dragging the playhead here in the middle. Hit S. Click on this first one I don't want. Delete on my keyboard. Click and drag this over to the other one, and once it hits that little blue line, it's going to snap into place with the next clip. I'm also going to just move through this clip a little bit, and that's probably good. S again, delete. Now I don't want this audio file here on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is, now I don't want this audio file here on the bottom that's on this bottom of this next clip. I just want the video. So what you can do, select the bottom piece, which is the audio, right click your mouse, and what you'll do is go to Group, Remove From. That's going to remove these two from a group with each other. So now if I go ahead and select the video and move it, I can also separate the audio. So now I can hit delete to get rid of that. Click on this top video and move it over. And just to scrub through, I'm going to hit enter. And I think that's pretty good for what I'm going to be going for. Enter again, S to split, delete to remove. All right, so let's play through what we have. So if we go down here to this little arrow here, play from start, that'll play from the beginning and show us what we have. We've got 1 clip, 2 clip, and 3 clip. So that's basically how to add clips to your timeline, as well as delete and cut them as well. All right, so now we're going to talk about how to add video and audio tracks so that you can have multiple tracks at a time. This is really useful for, say, if you want to add text. So what I'm going to do is go over here on the left side and hover over this video track. I'm going to right click and hit Insert Video Track. You can also do Control-Shift-Q. Let's go ahead and hit Insert Video Track. Now let's say we had something we wanted to overlay on top of this. So what it could be is, go to Media Generators. We'll just add a little bit of text here. So titles and text here at the top left. If this isn't already expanded, it's just going to be in all. Titles and text. So default is going to be the easiest on your computer because it's not adding any motion or anything. So if you just go ahead and drag that down onto this top video track we just created, it's going to open up a little box that'll allow you to edit the text that you have. So let's just go ahead and select the text, and we're going to hit travel time. You can also choose a slightly different text font if you want. This is your whole list of fonts here. What you need to do to change the font is select the font, and then go ahead and select whatever font you're going to use. So I'm going to use Montserrat, and I want it to be green with a white outline. So what you can do is text color, select that, and we can change the hue, and I'll change it to green. And next up, if you go to outline, you can do outline color and outline width, and we'll do just about there. And if we move this over a little bit so you can see it, and we click on the text and move it, we can change where it's at, and we'll go ahead and hit close. So that's why you would want multiple tracks. So let's say you wanted the audio track, which will match your video if you're talking, but then you want an audio track below that for music. Just go ahead over to this audio track, right click it, insert audio track, and that'll just insert another track so that you can add multiple things in your timeline all at once. So now we have something that looks like this. Travel time. So now we're talking about fading in and out your clips. This is video and audio. So let's say you don't want a video clip to just abruptly come on. You want it to fade in from a dark background or fade in at all. Here's how you do that. So just so you know also, if you want to scroll in and out to see this a little better, you can use the scroll wheel on your mouse, or you can use the up arrow while you're selected on the timeline to zoom in, and the down arrow to scroll out. I'm going to scroll in just a little bit. And what we'll be able to do is, if you hover over the top left of your video clip and go down just a little bit, you'll end up with this little half circle with 2 arrows. And that's how you can select your fade. So what we'll do is we'll click on it. So that's that top, you see that little tiny arrow there, that little blue triangle. So select that, drag that to your right, and this is how long your fade is. It tells you how many seconds. So you see it's 1.3 seconds. Let's zoom out a little bit. And now, if we hit enter on our keyboard or space, we'll be able to play it, and you can see it fades in. So instead of it just being an abrupt on, now it can fade in. Now you can also drag that as far as you want, really, and that'll fade in just a bit slower. But let's go ahead and drop that down. And you can also change the length of something like text or something stationary by clicking on the very end of it in the middle and dragging it. Now I'm going to fade this out using that little tiny arrow there, or that triangle piece. And now if we start from the beginning, we should have a fade in and a fade out. Now if you want to do the same with audio, let's go ahead and go to our project media, and I'll show you how you can fade in and out an audio track. So if you drag that down here to your audio track as well, I'm just going to go to the end here as an example, hit S to split and delete the excess. But you can do the exact same thing here. So you've got that little tiny triangle. You're just going to go ahead and drag that over. And now your audio will fade in. All right. So in this lesson, we're going to talk about how to create video transitions so that your clips aren't just a hard cut. I'm going to go ahead and mute this audio here. So what we have here between each clip is they're just butted up right next to each other. So they just cut really quick to each other, just really hard. But let's say we want to add transitions. So here's something cool we can do. Let's say you want this clip to fade into the next one. What I'm going to do here is zoom in a little bit. And if I select that end piece there on the right side and I drag this clip on top of the next one, so make sure you're not just clicking in the middle where you have the cursor icon. You want the icon that looks just like that, the arrows with the line. The line on the right side shows you that you're selecting the right clip. The line on the left side shows you're selecting the left clip. So let's go ahead and select the right clip and drag it over. What that's going to do is just create a quick fade between the two clips. So if we preview it here, it's just going to fade between the two. Now that is one way that you can do it. However, if you want something more versatile than just a straight up fade, let's go ahead into our transitions tab. So you've got a whole list of transitions you can use here. You can use cascading blinds. You can have it fly in and out. And when you hover over these, you can see what it'll do. You can do a clock wipe. For this one, I want to do a dissolve. Now basically you can see there's some different dissolve types here, but I'm going to do an additive dissolve. And to select and use this, we're going to click it and drag it right on top of that little crossed section between the two clips. And then you can also see some different tools you can use for your effect here. But let's just go ahead and preview it and see what it looks like now. So now you can see it had that kind of like flash effect there. That's the easiest way to add transitions to your clips. Just drag one piece onto another piece. You would want to select whatever piece you want to see the longest. So if you want to see more of the first clip or more of the second clip, that's the clip that you're going to drag on top of the other one. Then just go into your transitions, select one, and as soon as you have one selected, drag it over. That'll just replace the previous. And then just preview it there, and you can see now it changed. Let's talk about how to change your video opacity and the audio volume. So there's two different ways you can do this. To change your video opacity, you can go to the track opacity. So that's this little level slider. You can see how the video gets darker or lighter as I do that. Or you can also go to the top of the clip and you'll see another little blue dot. So these blue dots always mean something you can pull down usually. Like on the right side, you've got the one for your fade in. On the left side, you got the one for the fade in, but the top has this one directly in the middle of your clip. If you select that, it'll drop down this line, allowing you to change the opacity. So this isn't just making this video completely black. What it's doing is making it an opacity screen. So let's say we were to drag this one on top, so on this top video track, and then move this other one below it. Now if I change the opacity either of the track or of the video using the little dot, that's going to change the opacity and allow the bottom one to show through just a little bit. So this is really good. So if you need to cross dissolve some things or get a certain effect where you want one thing in the frame and another thing in the frame as well, it's going to allow you to do that. So that's how you change the opacity, really easy. And the same is true with the audio volume. So you can either use the slider here on the left, up and down, or you can do the same with the clip. And I believe you can also click anywhere along this top. You see there's two lines. You've got the top line and the middle line here. So if you drag that line down, that'll also allow you to select it. Now when that's down, and when you drag your opacity or your volume down, instead of dragging from the top, you'll then just drag from anywhere on the line or on the dot. And that'll allow you to change the volume or the opacity of either or. All right, let's talk about adding text to your video. So if you go to Media Generators, that's where we're going to find the text. And you go up here to Titles and Text. If this is selected, then go to All, titles and text. And there's some different text formats you can use. You can use the default text, which is just text with nothing else going on, no effects, no movement. But they also included some different ones that are pre-animated. So if you use these, it'll start you out with color and also animation. And once you drop it into your timeline, you'll be able to edit the speed of that, the color of the text, as well as what the text says. So you know what, let's go ahead and select float and pop. And we're going to drag that over the top of this very first clip here. I'm going to go ahead and hit X so I can change the duration of it. So again, you can either drag the end of it, or you can just click on where you want it. I'm going to hit S, delete. If you do just cut it, and these are animated ones, it'll just cut in the middle of the animation. Let's go ahead and click Control Z, do that a couple times. The quickest way to do that would be to hit the Control key, go to the end of your clip, click it, and drag it so that it's as short as you want it to be. So what I did is I just changed the duration to be the same duration as this first clip. So let's go ahead and hit play. And you'll see that it goes through the entire simulation of its animation. Alright, so now let's go ahead and change the text. So we want to change the color and a couple other things. So if you go up here to this little box with another box inside it, that's generated media, that's going to allow you to edit the settings. And I'll just change the size of this so we can see both here. So I want this to say, get outside. I do like the text font as well, so I'm just going to leave that how it is. I want to make it a little smaller though, so make sure your text is selected when you change the font or anything, because if you don't, let's say we change it here, it's not going to change anything at all. So you have to make sure your text is selected. I'm going to change it to about 22. That's a little too small. Let's do 30. You can also just enter the size you want. I'm also going to just make outside bold, add a little flare, change the text color. To do so, you can either go and click this little icon or click directly on this little text color box. That'll bring up your color picture, and this is how you change your hue. I'd like to make it somewhere in the green, maybe somewhere around there. That looks kind of good. And I think I also want to add a shadow. So you can add, if you go down here, you'll notice you've got scale. So that'll also change the size if you want to just do size versus size. You can also choose location or just click on it and drag it. You can also do background. All right, so let's go ahead and hit shadow. So shadow color is black, that's perfect. To enable the shadow, you have to click this little box here. Now you'll notice that little shadow at the bottom. And I want it to be offset on the x-axis just so it's over to the left, and it's a little too far down below the text. So I'm going to move this until it looks good. That looks pretty good to me. And then you can change the blur of the shadow. So if you want it to be a hard shadow, almost like an outline in the back, I just like something around there. Now we can see that looks pretty good there, and it does just what I want. And that's how you can add the animated text to your video. But again, if you want to use just a simple text, go ahead and hit sample text, do the same thing, drag it down. And again, the options in here are going to be the exact same, just without the animation. So you see no animation. If you want to change whatever you're editing to an animation, you can go ahead and select it there, and that'll do it for you as well. So now we're going to talk about how to manipulate your video. So cropping, zooming, flipping, and rotating. To crop your video, there's a couple different ways we can do this. So one, if you want the entire video clip to be cropped and stay at that same crop level, select the clip you're wanting to edit, and this one that has two boxes intersecting is actually your Event Pan and Crop tool. Let's go ahead and click on that. And you see this little box that is drawn around your footage. Any of these points on the corners are going to allow you to crop in or crop out. So let's go ahead and crop in. That'll make it zoom in. And you can drag out to zoom out. If you right click, you'll be able to restore, center, and flip. Let's go ahead and restore so it's restored. If you see some black bars on your video and you want it to fill that out, make sure you click here at the preset at the top. I'm doing 16:9, so whatever aspect ratio you want it to be to fill that up, make sure you select it. And then when you drag it in and crop it, it's not going to have those black bars and it's going to be sized properly. So if you just do that and exit, you'll see the whole video has been cropped that way. But let's say we want to add movement or pan in or zoom. So let's go ahead and zoom in. How you do that is you go to the very left side, make sure at the very beginning of your clip or wherever you want that zoom in to begin. So let's say we want it to zoom out at this point. So at this point, we're going to just click on it to create a keyframe. Drag this where you want that zoom to end. And go ahead and click and drag your box so that it ends at where you want it to be. So wherever these keyframes are, that's where the motion is going to begin and the motion is going to end. You can right click to delete that if you want. But that's how you're going to zoom in and zoom out. And so you'll notice now the clip is zooming out. But let's say that's not what we wanted to do. Let's go back in here. Let's go ahead and just delete these points. Let's go to the beginning, right click, restore. So it's what it was originally. Let's make sure we're back here at 16:9. And let's say we want to pan, so from left to right. Well, what I'm going to do is go ahead and click this little dot here on the corner, move the box over. I'm going to move my timeline over, and then I'm going to move the box to the other side. So that's how I'm going to pan from left to right in the clip. Let's go ahead and watch that through. So now it's panning from left to right, giving that extra motion inside the clip. Additionally, let's say you want to flip it or rotate the clip. We just want a simple horizontal flip. Let's remove that keyframe entirely. And now, just right click, flip horizontal. Right click, flip horizontal. If you want to flip vertical, you can do that as well. If you want to rotate the clip at all, drag your cursor to the top here, or any of the sides around the clip, and start dragging it to the right or left. And that'll allow you to rotate it however you need. If you want it to rotate throughout time, instead of just sticking here, what you can do is drag your timeline, then drag it, and it'll animate it to do what you need. Alright, so let's talk about how to change the video speed in your timeline. So let's say this clip of this guy walking around. I'm going to change the preview to the draft to auto so that we don't have to see the full quality. But let's say this is a little too slow, so it's just dragging around him and I want to just get this over with. If you hit the control key on your keyboard and take your mouse and drag it over to the end of the clip, this is how you can manipulate the time. So it'll pop up and say time stretch, drag to time stretch, or compress the event. So if we want to speed it up, we obviously want to make this clip shorter. So let's hold down that control key, click on the end, and drag it to the left so that we can shorten it down. Then let's go ahead and hit enter or space to play. And now you can see, bam, done. Let's say you want to do the exact opposite. I'm going to hit Control Z, go back to the normal speed. Let's say you want to do the exact opposite. This just isn't slow enough for you. Hit Control. Again, hover over the end of the clip until those little arrows pop up with the line. Click on it and drag it to the right. It's going to do the exact opposite of what we did before. And you'll see there on the bottom right, it'll show you the percentage of the speed that it is compared to the original speed. Let's go ahead and hit play. Now you see it's extremely slow. Now this is really good for time lapses if you want to speed up like an hour-long clip, or even slow-mo. So if you have like really cinematic shots that you want to slow down, that's the easiest way to do it. Alright, before we move on, I'd like to show you the extremely easy way it is to reverse your video clips. This also works for audio. So on any clip that you want to reverse, you can make sure it's on your timeline, right click it, and simply hit reverse. So let's go ahead and play it. Now it's going backwards. If I were to hit Control Z to undo that, you'll see that now it's going forward. So that's really all you have to do to reverse video or audio in Vegas Pro. Alright, welcome to the video effects section. So video effects are really easy to use. They're really easy to access. There's two ways you can access them. I'll show you the most difficult way first so that you get that out of the way. If you hover right over your clip, you'll see this effects button. Click on that and that'll give you the entire list of effects. The problem with this view is unless you know exactly what you're going for, you're probably not going to want to use this list because you can't get a visual of what your effect's going to be. Let's hit cancel. Now the easier way to get to your effects is the video effects tab. Now let's say this isn't showing. You can go to view window and then go down to video effects and that'll make sure that it's not hidden. So once you get to video effects, you can add any of the effects here on the left. Now this may not be expanded, so just hit all, that little plus next to all, and that'll give you access to each and every video effect. And once you see one you like, you're going to click it and drag it right onto your clip. Alright, how to change the brightness and contrast of your video in Sony Vegas. If you have the video effects tab open, click on brightness and contrast, hit default, drag that onto your clip. Now you'll be able to manipulate all of this. Now I suggest if you're viewing, you go up here to best and full so that you can just see the full quality of your image while you're making these adjustments. You can also make it a little bigger by just dragging once it pops up these little arrows. And then you can change your brightness, your contrast, and also the center of that contrast as well. If you're ever making these adjustments, it's a good idea to make subtle adjustments if you can so that it doesn't look too artificial. And then checking this little box here on any effect we'll talk about is how to show and hide that effect. Additionally, if you want to remove an effect, you can click the X here next to this effects.
Alright, so in this lesson we're going to talk about how to replace green screen footage, the background of your green screen, with something else. So if you want to change the background of some green screen footage, it's pretty easy to do and I'll show you how. So the two things you want are, first of all, your green screen footage, so whatever you have filmed that has a green screen behind it, and then after that you want to make sure you have the background you want as well. Now these are going to be on two separate video tracks. You're going to have your green screen on the top video track and your background on the bottom video track. Whatever you want behind you is going to need to be below the footage that has the green screen on it. So once you have that taken care of, let's head to the video effects tab and just go over here to Chroma Keyer. That's what you're going to use. This effect is called Chroma Key. So you're going to use Chroma Keyer. There's different presets here: blue screen, green screen, pure red screen. But what we're going to do is go ahead and select green and drag that onto the clip that has the green screen. Now it's going to do its best job and just do whatever it has here. It just selects a color of green for you, but we don't really want that green. So let's go ahead and deselect it. And while we're editing, let's go ahead and move the background from below our clip just so that we can have some, it'll be easier to edit it. Okay. Additionally, in your view pane, make sure that you go to the top here and select the quality best full, because as we're editing this, we want to make sure we can see the highest quality and if we're missing anything. So back in this effects pane in Chroma Keyer, there's a couple things we need to do. First of all, select the color green. And there's two different ways that you can select the green of your green screen. You can hit the dropper tool and select one spot, or something I prefer is select the dropper and select a box, which will give you an average of the colors of green you have there, more accurate. Once you toggle this little checkbox on, you'll see that the effect is starting to take its shape. We've gotten rid of all that green, but she doesn't look the same. As you can see, it's messed up some of the lighting on her. And here's how we're going to fix that. If we go down here to show mask only, that's going to show us what's being cut out and what's being left behind. We want the subject to be completely white and the background to be completely black. So how we do that is go over here to low threshold and push that up until your background is completely black. And you want it to be as far to the left as possible, so you want to move this slider as least as you can. And the next thing you're going to do is go to high threshold, and we want to move this until our subject is completely white. So you can see that happen there. And now if we go and uncheck show mask only, we see that she's actually cut out pretty well. Now something you are going to notice, however, is the edge of her. You see that little tiny green outline, and also just the fact that it's like she was just cut out. The way you can adjust that is using the blur amount, just to blur that edge just a tad, and then it doesn't look so unnatural. Now we're pretty much done with this effect. All we have to do is drag our background below our subject. And now she is in front of the background. Now if you notice anything weird or it looks a little unnatural at all, you can just go back here and tweak some of these things. Let's just turn that blur amount off. It actually looks pretty good. So I'm going to stick with that. Go ahead and preview it a little here. And it does look pretty good, so I don't see any major issues there. And that's really the easiest way to cut out green screen in your footage. I'm going to show you how to put whatever you want on a TV screen or a monitor screen. So let's say you have an image of a monitor or a TV and you want to place a video on top of it. This is how to do that. It's not too difficult. We'll be using masking again. So how to do so is, first of all, drag the image of your TV on the top track that you have, the top video track, and then drag whatever you want to be on the TV below the TV, so on the track below it. After you have that all squared away, you're going to select the TV image. You're going to go to this little tool here, Event Pan Crop again. And from here, we're going to want to zoom in as much as we can to get as much of this screen as possible. So whatever we're going to be selecting, we want to see it as big as possible here to make it easier to edit. And you can always drag this box, this window to be bigger if necessary. But I can see pretty much all of the outline of the TV here. So now we're going to go down here to mask, and if it's not already selected, just go ahead and hit enable. We're going to use this anchor creation tool, or you can hit D on your keyboard. And what this is going to allow you to do is draw a mask of the TV screen. So let's go ahead and see if we can outline this TV screen as good as we possibly can. If you make a mistake, you can always hit Control Z to go back if you feel like it wasn't straight enough. But let's just keep going along here. And I'm trying to just highlight that very darkest edge to try and get it as close to what I believe the screen would look like there. And you want to take as much time as you can on this, just because this is going to be the hardest part of the edit. But like I said, if you feel like you mess up, go ahead and hit Control Z and go back and just continue what you were doing. And we're going to keep selecting until we get all the way to the end. Right, so now we have our mask of our TV cut out, and you can see on the video we have the TV cut out, the screen only. We want the opposite effect. We want to place this video inside of the TV. So we're going to go back into this edit window and we're going to click Mode Negative, and that's basically going to invert the mask that we just made. So there's a couple different things we're going to need to do. First of all, let's go ahead and go down to our video that we have on the TV, and let's use the crop tool in order to zoom out and to place it where we want it on the TV. So what we'll do is we'll just zoom that out by dragging one of the corners and pulling outward. And you can see it's dragging it to the middle of the screen. So let's make it smaller until we have the video contained on the screen. So now you can see, obviously it's not the exact same aspect ratio. So in this case, I'm just going to have to crop in until I have it filling up the whole screen. And I'm pretty happy with something like that, but I'll go in just a little bit more to make sure that it's completely full. All right, so that's pretty good for me. And if you're unsure of where your video is going to end on the outside rim, like how much you have to work with, you can drop the opacity of the top layer to see where it is placed directly behind your screen. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now, if we look at this just a tad bigger, we can see that the edges are very rough. So I would prefer to make this look a little more natural, and here's how to do that. Let's go back into our crop pan tool. And from here, we're going to go over to the mask settings. So what we want to do is we're going to want to go to feather type. And this is the way to feather that edge so it's not so hard. What I'm going to do is feather it. I believe I'll feather it out. And let's just go up one and I'll show you what that does. So you can see now it made our line not so rigid. However, I think that's a little too aggressive, so I'm going to put in 0.5. And now you can see it kind of just edited it to be the video screen. Now if I want to make that a little bit more intense, we can go up to 2, and I'll show you what that does. And this is basing it off of your mask. I actually like that pretty good. Now if you want to take this the extra mile, and you want this to really look like it's on a TV, go to Video Effects. And Vegas Pro actually has a TV simulator built in, as we've discussed. And go over here to Reset to None. Drag that on top of the video that's on your TV. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is start making some changes. So we can do digital zoom. Aperture grill. And we can just play around with some of these settings. So this type of TV is a pretty older one. So it's going to have a little bit of phosphorescence, which I think is kind of that blue hue, as well as just a tidbit of static. And we'll just change a little bit of these lines. And as you can see, as I make these edits, it just kind of changes the way the video looks a little bit. We can go ahead and I'm going to take this and put it on preview. And we'll just kind of see how that looks. So since this is an old, I'm kind of looking for that broken look there. And it looks pretty good actually. But you can go ahead and change it to whatever you want. If you want it to be a more clear picture, you don't even have to have this. But if you do want it, you can always just adjust those settings here in the edits to make it less dramatic. So let's say I want less of a grill, but I want it to look like it looks like a TV. Take away that line seek problem so that everything looks pretty good. And that might be a little more natural.
All right, let's get into how to clone yourself in Sony Vegas. So what you're going to need is 2 clips, or even an extended clip, but 2 clips of a subject that are in 2 different spots in the frame. So in this clip, I tried to dig up some footage I could find that had my friend Mark here, and we're going to try and put him here and here at the same time. And here's the easiest way to do that. So I already cut out the 2 clips that I need, so the clip of him on the left and the clip of him on the right. What we're going to need is, if you want the audio of both clips, you're going to need 2 audio tracks. So we're going to click on the audio track we already have, insert audio track, or control Q. And we're just going to drag one of these on the top instead of the bottom. Perfect. Now we're also going to need to drag one of the video clips on top of each other. Perfect. So now we have the audio of both playing simultaneously as well as the video of both. I'm just going to clean this up here. So now we're going to get into the fun. In Vegas Pro, there's a couple ways you can do this. So one of the ways I've been using for years is really just the crop tool. So if you go up here onto your top video clip, that's the one you're going to be using to cut out. Click on the event pan crop. And let's go ahead and zoom in quite a bit here. And what we're going to be using is the mask. So you'll notice here on the bottom left you have position and you also have mask. Let's go ahead and click mask. And what we can do is, using this anchor creation tool, we're going to just click from the top of the footage, so above it, make a point, and keep doing that until you get outside the footage. And we would just want to include all of this because all of this is going to be seen. And now it's cut out. That's pretty much it. But here's how we can clean this up. So you notice there's this line here that doesn't look too good. And what you can do, and this is especially true on like white walls, or if you're trying to show someone in front of a wall and you want it to blend well, how we can fix that is go back in here and hit path. And we're going to do feather. We can do out. And you can do this either way. You could do out, in, or both. Now feathering out, we're going to just up that a little bit. And you'll notice it just completely removed that line. But you notice we're cutting off his foot. So let's go down. another thing we can do is just change the points here, but that looks pretty good. Or we could do in. And we just adjust this until we're happy. And that looks pretty good for now, but I think out was better. And I'm just going to adjust the point so that it is able to hide him pretty good. So now, if we look at this footage, he actually looks pretty good. So we've got 2 of Mark. And that's really all you have to do to clone yourself. There is another way you can go, which is going to the Video Effects tab. Let's go ahead and remove this crop by going into Crop and Reset Mask by right-clicking. A new effect that they have added is Bezier masking. Don't know actually how to say that, but if you drag this down onto your footage, it's essentially going to allow you to do the same thing. However, you're going to want to drag the points of how you want your mask to be. So in this case, we can even just drag this mask to be a little mask of him. And then instead of it having this entire bit over here masked in, it's just going to be this little box that we're creating. That's what's going to be within this mask. Additionally, you're going to be able to blend it as well. So that's kind of like your feathering. And you can notice here on the left side what that's doing if we push it too far. But then we'll just blend it just a tad. You can also invert the mask as well if you want it to be the opposite, but we don't. And that has basically the same effect, but I prefer the other one just because this way makes it harder to see what you're doing, what you're working with when you're changing the effect. But there's just a couple different ways to go ahead and clone yourself. All right, let's say for whatever reason, whatever you're editing, maybe you need to make a thumbnail for YouTube or just pull out an image of what you've been editing so far. There is a way to capture a screenshot of what you're making currently. So whatever point you want to make sure that's selected. And then whatever quality you have selected for the output that you're viewing, that's what quality your screenshot's going to be. So you're going to want it to be best and full. And then right next to that, you're going to see this save icon, this floppy disk, save snapshot to file. So you go ahead and hit that and hit save, and that saves an image of what you made, and it also drops it right here in your timeline. So now you can see this is just an image of what we had. All right, how to add a watermark to your videos. There's a couple different ways you can do this. If your watermark is going to be text that you want to edit, you can go ahead and just add some text over it and lower the opacity. So I'll show you how to do that. Let's go ahead and go to Media Generators, Sample Text, drag that on top of your videos. And let's say you just want this to be like Video Producer. We're going to change the size of that to whatever size we're going to want the watermark to be. And we'll even make it a different color as well. And I'll just say the watermark needs to be at the top, for example. And I'll change the opacity by dragging it down. And now, throughout this entire footage, we've basically got a watermark. That's one way you can do it. Another way you can do it is if you have an image, you can drag that image in and change the opacity of it as well. So I've got this image here of this background. And let's just say we wanted it to be a small icon. We'll go into the crop and we'll drag it to be a lot smaller. And I'm just going to drag this to be something like in the corner, for example, like right over here on the right side. Let's say that's my logo icon. Now the one thing you'll notice is it's not a, now this is really good for PNG files, so files that do not have backgrounds. But let's just say on the off chance you have an image that has a white or a black background, we can fix that. Let's go to Video Effects, and just like we were doing for the green screen, we can use Chroma key here. We'll drag that on top of our image, and for the color, I'm going to go ahead and click this dropper tool and select what I want to get rid of, which is black. So now all we have left is the image. And throughout our entire timeline, we've got that image there as a watermark. So that's two different ways you can add watermarks to your video, using Opacity, or using Chroma Key, or using text. So let's talk about how to add a voiceover to your video in Sony Vegas. So let's say I've got these clips here, and they're just some nature clips, and I want to add a voiceover on top of it. The easiest way to do that is make sure you have a fresh audio track here. If you don't already have one, you can right click again. You can hit Insert Audio Track or Control Q. However, I'm just going to go ahead and use this one I have here. Select the point that you want to start recording, and all you're going to need to do is hit this little microphone icon or Control R. And as soon as you're ready, just go ahead and do it. Now, what's going to pop up is this little box that says select the audio track that you want to use to arm to record. So we can see here track number 3 is the one I want, and then hit OK. Then it's going to ask you where you want to save your recording file. Hit OK. And now we're recording a voiceover for this video. So once you're done, it's going to show you that you have this WAV file. You can rename it, you can delete all, or you can hit done. And now that recording is right there. All right, so in this lesson, we're going to go start to finish making a creative video. So in this video, I'm going to go ahead and have a bunch of these nature shots, and the message of it is just going to be go outside more. It's going to be a short little clip. I'm going to drag all of the things I have, all the assets, video files, audio files, straight into the timeline. Do I want to set the project to that? No, I do not. What do I want to start out with? So I want to start out with a drone shot. I'm going to make sure this is draft and half because of my computer's resources. Let's see where I want this to begin. That looks pretty good. Split, delete. I want it to fade in just a little. That looks good. And then as it goes through the clip, I'm going to scroll to the very end here because I want this all to be zooming in just ever so slightly on this car. I want it to be true dramatic, but let's see. Yeah, that adds a little bit of motion. I love it. Okay. Now transitioning to the next clip, I probably want, I think I want this shot moving through the forest here. And so I'm going to take that right there. I'm going to Control C to copy, Control V to paste, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to reverse the clip. And then I'm going to make this a lot faster. So it's basically going to be moving from this clip, and then it's going to transition by zooming back really fast. So I like that zoom back little look here. I don't want that shot to go on forever, but what I want to do is transition that into this shot here of these leaves. And I don't really need this audio, so I'm going to go ahead and right click, go to group and remove from, and then I'm going to go ahead and delete it. Now, where's the movement? I like this movement it has just at the very beginning. That's a good length for it. Alright, so we've got that clip, and I see how it just abruptly moves into the next one, but I want to make that a little bit more of a seamless transition. So I could just do a fade, but I don't think that's what I want to do. I'm going to want to dissolve it in some way. Maybe a crossfade. Let's see about that. I still don't like that too much. So I might do something more like a... Let's see what warp flow is. I think warp flow might be a little better use of this. There we go. I like that. But I want it to be shorter. There we go. That's what I was looking for. It's very subtle, but it's there. All right, so we move into that next clip, and Then I'd like to transition just to this guy walking around. Again, I don't need the audio. Remove, delete. And what I'm going to do is just take this clip of this guy, and then I am just going to abruptly cut to a waterfall. I'm going to act like he's looking at this waterfall here. Again, don't need the audio. Group, remove, delete. This is going to be my concluding shot. So I'm going to leave that for a while, maybe to there. I'm going to scroll in here. Let's see. Now I want it to be zoomed in a little bit. And then as the time goes on, it's going to zoom out and reveal some of this waterfall. That's pretty good. And then we'll just have it zoom out. Okay. Got some audio here. Just going to go ahead and pop that under it here. And we'll go ahead and just add some fade effect into it as well. Dragging that in. Don't want it to be too loud. And then finally, I'm going to add a new video track. And over this last piece, I'm going to go to Media Generators, Titles and Text. And I'm going to do, it's just going to say Go Outside. I'm going to change that to be smaller. I'm going to move it right here. I'm going to fade it in. Fade it out. Like that. And I think we've got a pretty good video here. So we've got to zoom in on the car. And that's basically how you can just cut things together, reverse them, add some text, add some titles, that type of thing. And now I'll show you how to render. So now that we're good on our video here, now let's go into rendering the video. All right, so I've got this video file here that I just made, and I want to render it out. So there's a couple things you can do. If you just want to render, let's say you have a bunch of different things here on the timeline. Let's say you have multiple video clips and maybe you're editing multiple things at a time. What you can do is, instead of rendering the entire thing, you can render just a selection of what you've got on your timeline. And the way to do that is you're going to click on a certain point of your timeline and then drag your cursor so that it selects. And then drag the little yellow arrow here so that it's only over the spots that you want to render. Then you're going to head to File, Render As, and that's going to bring up our render window. So again, you got those timeline things that we selected at the beginning with our template. What do we want to render this video as? I'm going to do a 30 frame per second 1080p video. If I go to Render Options, Render Loop Region Only is what we selected. If this wasn't selected and all you have on the timeline is just a video and you don't have like breaks in between them where you're trying to separate multiple videos, you don't have to have this selected. But I just do that to ensure it doesn't render out anything extra. I remember when I was first starting out, I would edit long videos and then I'd have like a clip maybe way on the end, and it would render out just blackness all until it got to that 2-second clip. So I had tons of extra file. Didn't need that. You're going to change your file name here, so I can do Go Outside. And then I'm going to change where I want it. And then hit render. And then you're just going to let it do its thing.